Welcome to the worst nightmare of all. Reality.
Explore the lesser-known stories of our unknown world. Join the pursuit of the paranormal with Ash and Greg.
Hello, Ash. How are you doing?
Evening, Greg. Very well. We are just days away from Minicon 2023. It's come around quick.
I wondered
always
when you
seems
might
to.
try and plug that again.
It's sold out, so I can't plug tickets anymore. But yeah, for preparations in full swing for Minicon, get everything last minute preparations, everything all sorted.
Yeah. How's it going?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. Just
Cool.
waiting game now to get all the speakers here. Make sure hopefully don't have any last minute cancellations like we had the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But we have backups in place just in case that does happen. But I don't think it will. I spoke to everyone this week and they're all up for
I've got
coming.
my presentation ready.
Oh, that's true. I might throw you in there if I need to. How are you doing?
I thought it was headlining.
Not yet. Maybe in a couple of years.
We won't be friends by then if you carry on like that. No, I'm all good, thanks. I'm all good. Lots happening in my life right now. I'm waiting to move and everything else. So, yeah, all good. And the weather's nice. I've been in a t-shirt all day. I walked the dogs for 90 minutes this morning and I have a half an hour this afternoon and it's roasting. So, yeah, life's good. Life's good.
Awesome.
And, yeah, I can't wait for Minicon. It'll be good fun. It'll be good fun. So anybody who's listening now and is coming to Minicon, I will have a stand. I will be selling merch. And unlike last year, there's no excuse because if you haven't got cash, we take credit cards now. So there's no excuse for non-purchase. And we can shift it in a couple of days to you. So there we go. Anyway, that's my little plug. That's my little plug. So we are joined tonight by somebody who is only recently we've sort of connected with and through, dare I say it, that hotel that we always talk about for some reason. And obviously our association with Danny Moss and all that kind of stuff. So we are joined by Chris Collins, who runs Phantom Physics, which, I'll let him explain it all. Hello, Chris. How are you doing? You're mute. There we go.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome.
How are you doing?
How are we doing? I'm all right, thanks. I'm all right. Yeah. Who are you?
Yeah, good. I see you rocking the T-shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Representing.
Look at that. So, yeah. And anybody... So we're doing this slightly different tonight. So this will be video-based as well. I don't know how that's going to go, but we'll go with that. So anybody who's watching on YouTube... Chris has got the T-shirt on, which aliens aren't real, which, as we know now, they are. So, first of all, before we go into the Phantom Physics, what's your take on aliens then, as you've got the T-shirt? And I know you put that question up on Facebook.
Now, it's always been a subject I've been fascinated about ever since I was young and reading magazines and all sorts about aliens and UFOs and things like that. So I'm very open-minded to it. There were little knocks. I don't know if you remember back in the 90s, there was a VHS that got leaked of an autopsy. And I remember watching that and being fascinated, and then it was debunked, so kind of ruined it for me a little bit. But I am open-minded. I'm willing to believe there's certainly life out there, and there's a very good chance that if they're intelligent enough, they could be making their way to us. So I am open-minded to these things.
Good. Because we talk a lot about UFOs, aliens, and the paranormal, and we see that they're all kind of linked. And it seems to be something right from the start that we we had them sort of pretty separate right from the first episode when we were talking about like Bigfoot or the Australian Bigfoot, and then since then, everybody we've spoken to, there always seems to be a link between like aliens, the paranormal, and such like. So it's interesting that you've had an interest sort of in UFOs and stuff as well, because everybody seems to have an interest in one thing, but they're more passionate about the other thing. So it's kind of like I'm the paranormal side, or I was at the start, and Ash is the UFO side, and over the years we've kind of mixed a little bit now, haven't we? So it's all a bit blurred. So do you have any kind of opinion on what you think of like aliens, paranormal, cryptids, anything like that? Do you think they're linked?
Well, it's an interesting question. I mean, I'll start with UFOs or UAPs as they call them these days. I don't know why that's happened, just to confuse us. But I like a couple of theories, such as, are they actually, rather than extraterrestrials, are they us from another future coming back? You know, if we develop that technology, will we come back on, check on ourselves and possibly help ourselves? And you mentioned cryptids. I mean, I love folklore as well. And if you go back over the years, especially in places like Wales, there's so many stories about fairies, and fairies weren't your Tinkerbells. They were another race of creatures that coexisted with us, and they weren't particularly nice to us. Now, these days, Disney's kind of got hold of fairies and made them kind of, this special magical thing that help people. But there's so many stories out there, and Cornwall as well, Cornish piskies. It just makes you think that there's that many stories about these other creatures out there. Are there other creatures that we could perceive to be extraterrestrial, but actually live here? Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. And especially when I talk about like the possibility of time traveling as well. Something that's always interested me is time slip theories. There's a place in Liverpool, you probably know about this, but in Old Street seems to be a bit of a hotspot for it. Have you heard of that?
Yep. Yeah.
Now, under Bold Street is obviously Liverpool has an underground rail track, doesn't it? And the theory goes, could the electric line that's under there in a big coil be causing some sort of EMF that makes this possible? And if it is possible, when we see what we perceive to be a ghost, is it actually a merging of the two timelines? Is there some sort of way that the void can be that close together that people from our past, because it seems to be Victorian ghosts that are seen so often, could it just be some sort of time slip? Yeah, I could go on about these things forever because I
you
read
carry on. You
Yeah,
carry on.
go down a rabbit hole on Reddit and read all the stories.
That's a dangerous place for a rabbit hole, Reddit, isn't it?
Oh, I know. Yeah, terrible.
I've got
Lost
one
many
question.
an hour.
You just mentioned about Victorian ghosts, and a lot of ghosts do tend to be from the past. When are we going to see chavvy ghosts? And I mean that in the nicest possible way. Because obviously people die all the time, and you've got like when I was growing up in the 90s, in the I grew up way before the 90s, but during the 90s, like you had like the early 90s with the Manchester music scene with Oasis and all those kind of Britpop bands, and then you had the early to mid 90s with the rave scene. So I used to rock like Curtains and stuff like that, and I just wonder when we're going to start seeing spirits. I know it's hard to believe with this fine head of hair, but I just wonder when we're going to start seeing sort of more modern day ghosts. I don't know.
I mean, in answer to your first question, I hope we never see chavvy ghosts, to be honest. Burberry's gone and I'm happy with that.
Everyone loves a check.
It's an interesting question. I mean, why is it that we always see Victorian ghosts? And, a lot of people pointed out that electricity started becoming more and more in place around those times? Or is it something to do with electricity and fields and that sort of thing? And then perhaps now that we're more aware of radio waves and EMF and things like that, all devices have like an EC certificate, don't they? So they're not emitting all this stuff. So have we stopped that sort of thing happening? So we're stuck with the old ghosts, but is it preventing new ghosts perhaps? I don't know. It's an interesting question.
Damn you, European certificates of conformity and stuff like that. I deal with those on a daily basis and they're a pain in the ass. But yeah, I hadn't even thought about like the invention of electricity and
But then you do see a lot of like old timey Roman soldiers, things like. But I would love to like walk through the lounge and see like some ghost wearing a tracksuit and a hoodie with a baseball cap, just like
a blade.
Yeah, we can move on. Like, I got robbed by a ghost. Like, you see, like news articles, it's like I sleep with a ghost or I'm married to a ghost. It's like I got robbed by a ghost. He took my phone and my wallet. Like.
Well, that's a good point actually, because these Romans might have been in an amphitheatre or like the walls around Chester, that sort of thing, and people might go to those sort of places with the romantic idea of seeing a ghost. Whereas, is anyone going to go ghost hunting on a council estate? I can't see it.
Well, yeah.
Maybe it's an untapped resource. Perhaps should we do that? Yeah.
Is it? I'd not thought about the electricity thing before, though. But then saying that, you talk about the Romans and that kind of historic thing, and you see these Roman guards walking through. Even in America, these Roman guards walking through. We spoke to a guy at Stardust Ranch, John Edmonds, and he said that two Roman guards walked through his living room, and he's in the middle of Arizona. So I don't know how that works.
Oh,
but he's on a ley line there, so I don't know if like the sort of spiritual energy, like the electricity, spiritual energy lines, maybe doing something there. But what we don't see, and this would be mind-blowing, as we're sort of on timelines of what we're going to see and what kind of ghost. Sorry, it's been a while since we've properly recorded in this.
Yeah, we've had a week off, and I feel like I don't know what to do anymore.
What about prehistoric ghosts?
You don't see any ghosts of dinosaurs, do you? That's one of the things people bring up all the time.
And we know they existed because we've got their bones. We dig up their bones. So how's that work?
No electricity back then, you see, Greg. We've sussed it.
It's a good point, though. That whole electricity thing is a good point. And I hadn't thought about that before, so maybe that's something we need to...
Saying that about dinosaurs...
I don't know where we're going now.
I don't know where I'm going with this. It's starting now, but I'll carry on. So I'm friends with someone, and he has seen a pterodactyl, or what looked like a pterodactyl, and he's gone down the cryptid route with it. Like, is it obviously like cryptid? I can't say air monster.
It is an air monster.
I think like sea monster, air monster. I guess it is.
Sorry, Chris. You've landed in this absolute nightmare of a podcast recording.
Air monster.
Fine. I can see the way your minds work. It's like the rabbit holes I go down. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, air monster. But could that have been a ghost of a pterodactyl rather than actual pterodactyl that is seen?
Very good point. But what about the Loch Ness monster? Could that be a dinosaur? You know, the ghost of a dinosaur? Because they struggle to find any evidence with sonar and whatnot, don't they? But yet, so many people claim to have seen it. So perhaps you've got something there.
That is a good shout. We'd never even thought about some of this cryptid stuff as
ghosts.
Yeah. Could be.
So we need to do council house investigations and cryptid ghosts. That's the next two. Okay.
Interesting idea. And mentioning the hotel before, they did something this week called the Singapore theory, where you dress and make the place more like old times to kind of encourage the spirits to communicate because it's more familiar to them. So if we go to the council houses, maybe we should put the baseball caps, the tracksuits on, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Try and That's a good shout. We'll just rock up
Try it.
with
Try it.
tracksuits, hoodies, and my Reebok Classics.
Excellent. Yeah.
That's a good idea, though. There's a fair point. What happened with that Singapore theory? Did they? I haven't seen the episode yet. But...
Very good actually. I was at the hotel on Friday night.
Yeah.
Very similar. They already had the candles out on the table, and you might have seen the post about poltergeist activity there. Happened
What was
right
that all
in
about?
front of me. Presuming that this goes out after, because I think they're trying to like kind of
Tuesday it'll go out.
Tuesday, right? Yeah, okay. Maybe I shouldn't give too much away because I know they're trying to tease it on the socials, but I'll just say that there were 6 of us around a table. There were 3 candles in the middle of the table, and something fantastic happened. And Brett, who's a lovely lad, screamed like a girl.
Wow.
So it was good. It was good.
Although I have seen Brett nope out of there during their lockdown thing. He just left.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So that's cool. But you can't tell us what it was. Have I got to wait and see now? Tell us off air, and then we'll...
Yeah, I will. Yeah. And that was all. We had all the electric lights off, no devices, and just candles in the middle of the table. And boom, it just happened. So, yeah, watch out for that. But yeah, the episode they've just put out, they had direct voice phenomena. They had 2 black shadows. I think they were on 2 separate nights, actually, but it was just after the Singapore theory. So it seems to work. Seems to be something to it.
I have to try that next time we're up there. Ash, I'll get my growing up clothes because I'm that old. I'm not here.
Growing up clothes.
Yeah, what I wore when I grew up. That was the joke because I'm old.
Oh right, yeah.
Fucking hell!
I completely missed that joke. Yeah. Greg's old. Yeah.
The annoying thing is he's not that much older than me. I don't think so. I'm keeping quiet.
It depends how old you are, Chris. How old are you?
Can I lie and say 25? I'm 41.
I'm older. I don't look it, I know, but
it's just about that you beat me to it, Greg.
I'm not much older. Moving on. I'll tell you off air what the number is. It's still a 4. I'm still in the 4s, so we're all good. So, getting on to your origin story. So, what got you into the paranormal? You mentioned about like the UAP and the autopsy video, which I don't think helped when Ant and Dec done their film. I think that might have put the scene back a little bit. But so what got you into the paranormal? Yeah,
I've got a prop. So I'm going to show you something now that's familiar to many people who are into the paranormal. You remember this one? The Osborne World of the Unknown Ghosts.
No.
It's very popular. This is actually a reprint of it. It's got a forenote by Reece Shearsmith, because it was his inspiration. It was one of his first things. And actually, when you talk to people into the paranormal, everybody knows that book. It's one of the first things. One of my earliest memories of reading a book was that book. And I read every page of it. I read it every night. And following on from that, and bearing in mind I was only 6 or 7 at the time, I would buy every ghost story I could lay my hands on and read every page of it and recite it to my friends, terrify them all. But I loved it. I was absolutely obsessed with it. I think I was watching things like Poltergeist and The Exorcist by about like 8 or 9 years old. And whereas it might have terrified some people, I was just hooked. I was like, because it's like a bit of magic that actually might be real. There might be something to it. So, yeah, I loved a ghost story, and I would lay my hands on anything I could find to tell me more about these things. I actually remember talking to my auntie, and I came up with a theory when I was about 6 or 7 years old on how to catch a ghost.
Oh, Go on, share that.
So I started my business at an early age. So 6-year-old, I was thinking, right, ghosts can go through things. What else can go through things? Water. So maybe if I get a water gun and squirt a ghost, it'll stop them.
Wow.
Maybe one day I'll get to test that out.
Take one to the hotel. Just
I
fire
should,
it
yeah.
off.
I'm sure Harry will be fine with that.
I'm sure he will.
Next to all their equipment as well. That's how I started, and I would love to say there was some big incident that I saw something. But the reality is, until I was in my late 30s, I actually never saw anything serious. I grew up watching things like Most Haunted, and I know everyone has their opinion on Most Haunted these days. But it certainly opened up the field to a lot of people, didn't it? Whatever you think of it, and like I say, there was always a good story behind them and everything. So yeah, it fascinated me. And I've got to admit, until I was in my late 30s, I wasn't aware of, people like the haunted hunts and groups that go and do paranormal investigations that were accessible to your average person. So I didn't do anything serious. I'd done things like, the Edinburgh ghost tours, Chester ghost tours, those sorts of things. But I never did a serious investigation until only a few years ago. But again, loved it, was hooked, really wanted to get into it. And then you look at the equipment, it's so expensive, isn't it? It's really expensive. And I've got my background is I do software, I do electronics. So I thought I've got to learn how these things work and make them for myself. Never had ideas of selling anything. I'd do all my research, find out how these things work, and go about making stuff for myself. Friends were saying, that's great. You should sell that. I'm like, yeah, but what I mean, I've never done anything like this before, set up a shop or anything like that. I'd hate to think people would buy it and it not work and they wouldn't like it. So I just was making it for myself for a while and eventually sold one or two and people loved them. And, I wasn't charging the earth for it. So it's just carried on from there and getting bigger and bigger. And I'm in talks with companies. Well, a company in Germany want to buy hundreds of items off me, and I'm having to manage their expectations because, unfortunately, I still have a full-time job, 40 hours a week. Still got a family to be with, and I do paranormal investigations in my spare time. I do charity work, so it's I have to manage their expectations. Say, look, I'd love to sell you hundreds of these items, but in reality, I can only make a few a week. So it's going really well. Like I say, I've stuck to the principle of I do make a profit, but I don't want to be extortionate. Don't want to charge people too much because I want to make it accessible. Because I think everyone should be able to do these things, go out, enjoy themselves, and not have to take out a mortgage just to get like an ITC device or a REM pod or something.
Definitely. Before we come on to the equipment and the stuff that you've made, you mentioned the experiences in your late 30s before you kind of had sort of any experiences. Could you just talk to us about them?
So I started volunteering for a company called Haunted Rooms, and we did Stanley Palace in Chester. First time I went there, we had a lot of activity. There's I don't know if you've ever been there, it's not too far from the hotel actually, but there's a long function hall upstairs with a grand piano at one end and chairs at the other. And we're all doing a vigil at the far end away from the piano, and we started hearing a little tinking noise. Just a dink, dink. We're looking at each other like, what's this noise? And first time there, so didn't know what it could be. There was something outside blowing in the wind or something silly like that. And anyway, this noise kept coming and going and coming and going. And then two of us saw what looked to be a humanoid shape, but like a white cloud by the piano. And we both kind of jumped and kind of looked at each other and then looked back and it seemed to disappear. But we were both thinking, did we actually see that? What was that actually what we think it was? And I will never know because obviously they don't allow cameras in there, unfortunately. So we couldn't take pictures. And and there's no CCTV or anything in that area, so I will never know for sure 100%. But what on earth was that? And I have been back to that place at least 10 times since, and I've never seen it again. That piano has never made that tinkling noise ever again. So I have no idea what it was, but I can't explain it. And that really, if I was obsessed before, that really got my spidey senses tingling, and I had to carry on.
It's interesting because it does just take that one sort of thing, and it can just completely change how you think about the topic. I mean, I've had loads of experiences since I've started getting interested in the topics as I got older, and it just spurs you on even more as well, doesn't it? And you just think, it's almost like the Holy Grail is just out of reach all the time. Same with UAPs and everything like that. It's just that amazing piece of footage or that amazing piece of evidence that you can sort of say to other people, have a look at this. It's just out of reach, but everybody's got their own sort of personal experience that really sort of pushes that passion through. So, I mean, and that's the difference between that experience that you've had and the kind of experience that you can have at the hotel. This is not a fucking advert for the hotel, just to clarify.
Listen,
Anybody
I'm
listening,
always there, mate.
we're
So
not paying.
more
We
than
should
happy.
be paid. Danny and that should be paying us because we talk about it all the bloody time on this podcast. Anyway, the whole concept that there's all the cameras there to capture stuff that happens is complete contrast to some of these places that have got no cameras, don't allow video, which is weird, all that kind of stuff. And you just think, why are you not allowing video to be captured or stuff like that? Because we do like the haunted pubs episode that we around the UK, and every pub's got this thing that seems to happen all the time, but nobody is able to back it up with any kind of evidence. I mean, we've seen bits and pieces, but not like you can get at a certain hotel.
That's the big difference, isn't it? That's what makes it so special and stands out from the rest. The fact that you can back it up.
Yeah.
And when you see this episode from when we were there on Friday, you'll see what I mean.
Can't
It
wait.
would be easy to hear the story from me and think, oh, somebody knocked a table or something like that, but it's so obviously not when you see it on the camera. And it just sets it apart, doesn't it? And they do so many things in that place as well. So another thing I'm fascinated by is Danny's got like a frequency generator and a brown noise generator, so it pumps out sound into the atmosphere there, and it makes things happen. It seems to stimulate activity. So it fascinated me. So I went down the route of designing like a frequency generator myself and taking it there. Brown noise machine as well. And we did an S-test method session there once and nothing was happening. So we just got the brown noise machine out and started pumping it out, and we started getting things through, we started getting words through. So it fascinates me that, there could be something in this, frequencies. I'm going down another rabbit hole here, but what about parallel universes? If there's another version of our world that's slightly out of phase with us, so with your electricity, going back to that as well, you get three-phase supplies, and each one of each phase is out of sync with the other. It's out of phase. So what if there are universes that are just out of phase with each other? And there are ways with electricity to bring them in line. You can add a capacitor, you can add resistance, and you can get them in phase. What if there's a way of doing that with, say, parallel worlds? And obviously it'd be more complicated than just having a capacitor or something like that. There'd be more to it, but there could be environmental factors that are helping that happen. That sort of thing. I think there's something in the frequencies and things like that. If there is a way of manipulating the frequencies and maybe bringing these parallel worlds in line, perhaps. It's all theoretical, isn't it? But I think there's something there. I think it's something that needs to be followed up on. Fascinating.
Yeah, I mean the whole like parallel universe, dimensional stuff is stuff that we've talked about with the UAPs and the cryptids as well, that they could just be visiting us from another dimension. And like me and Ash said 3 years ago, if we'd have been talking about this on episode 1, I think we'd have been nuts. But I think the journey that people go on when they start looking into this subject, the paranormal subject, into UAPs, all that kind of stuff, and it kind of makes sense. Like you mentioned about the different phases and the universes being just out of phase of each other. It makes sense when you think about it. But saying it out loud to people who are not interested in the subject, they probably think, what the fuck are you lot on about? Because you're all nuts. But I think the more you go down a rabbit hole and it all blurs, like Reddit rabbit holes are the worst, but they're also the best because you can just, somebody will say something, you go, actually, that makes sense. Or I'll go down that avenue. So what do you think is going to be the best piece of equipment? So before we get on to stuff you make, what do you think is the best piece of equipment that you've experienced? So apart from that brown noise generator, is there anything that you think, you know what, people need to try this? Or
Well, Danny's got an interesting bit of kit, hasn't he? The Introvox. Have you seen that? It's scanning. I think it's scanning frequencies that aren't used by radio stations, because a lot of these devices out there, like the spirit boxes, they are scanning radio stations. So they'll pump out a word, but it's just part of a song. Now, what's interesting about Danny's device there is it's only scanning frequencies that aren't used by radio stations. And he's also pumping out there sounds that he believes may stimulate activity. And he gets words coming through. He gets Grace, the haunted doll, speaking to him. Not all the time, not on demand, unfortunately, but quite a lot. They're able to capture things. So that fascinates me. That's a really interesting bit of kit.
The Estes method has been one that we've found to be super successful in experiments we've done. How do you find that method? Do you?
I have mixed results on it. I've had friends of mine have heard their own voice mimicked back to them. And that's incredible, because you can't hear your own voice on a radio station somewhere, so that's legit. That's interesting. Sometimes you get nothing, but I think that then makes the times you do get something and it's valid, it makes sense, it makes it more interesting. If you were just getting words left, right, and centre, it just wouldn't hold much weight. So I think there's something in it. I think there could be something in that.
Definitely. You mentioned like brown noise and white noise in this. Just explain sort of what that is and what the difference is. I think like most people know what white noise is. What's like difference between white noise and brown noise, that type of stuff.
So your white noise is your static, isn't it? So it's remnants from the Big Bang, little bits of radiation, background radiation that you can pick up through radio waves. And the brown noise is similar, but it's a different tone. I believe it can be used to soothe, say, like dogs. If you leave a dog at home, you can leave brown noise on to soothe them. It's kind of like almost like sounds of the womb kind of thing. It's
I'll have to try that on my dogs.
I think it's on Spotify. I think you can get brown noise on Spotify. Try it.
Can you? Okay.
Yeah. But it's very interesting that pumping that out in a place like the hotel can make things happen. So it's interesting.
So what some of the sort of kit, let's talk about your work now, your phantom physics. You talked about sort of how it all came about, wanting to make kind of affordable, get the equipment, because it is very expensive. I was looking to buy a spirit box a couple of months ago, and I was like, how much for basically a radio? It's like,
I know,
what, like £100 for a radio.
That was actually the first device. That was the first device I started making, actually, with spirit boxes for that reason. I wanted one myself, and I've still got my original prototype. I take it to every investigation. I still use it now. But yeah, it's essentially scanning radio frequencies. So I've got it's got a Raspberry Pi controller in there. I don't know if you're familiar with those, but it's got a like an FM board in there as well to scan the radio waves. And yeah, it's doing the same as all the big devices out there. They probably have a lot more settings, but depends what you want, doesn't it? If you want to spend your £300, you can get different kind of speeds that scan through that sort of stuff. And mine does that, but perhaps there's a few more tinker settings that you can do on those. I think I was selling them at something like £80, whereas you buy one of these spirit boxes and they could be like £200, something like that. So it's about being accessible. I'm not trying to take business away from anyone because the big ones out there will always be there. I just do it as almost a hobby because I'm passionate about it and just kind of want to make it available for your average person.
Cool. So what else?
So that's how I started.
Yeah, go on. Talk us about more of the.
So I mean, I started making REM pods as well, but I thought, well, I'll make something a little bit different. So I made like a Remy, his name was. He was a 3D ghost REM pod, and he just lit up different colours, that sort of thing. Just to be a little bit different. Again, just something that interested me in doing it. And I moved on to like spirit boxes that scan and pump white noise out. And now moved on to a couple of devices I'm really excited about, actually. One's like a tracer tape, like a long LED strip. And it's continuously looking in front of the device. And should it see an object, whether we can see it or not, if something breaks the beam, it will show you on that LED light strip where it's been broken. So you have an idea of where, if there is something there, where that noise has come from, where that object is. So that's something I'm quite excited about at the moment. And another one is the thermal tracker. I've just made 2. I'm waiting for more parts to make more because it just boomed. So it continuously looks at the room in front of it for changes in temperature. So as soon as you turn it on, it calibrates itself. So the room's, say, 20 degrees average. And should it drop to, say, suddenly 18, 17 degrees, why is it suddenly gone cold in that spot? And it gives you a grid layout to show you roughly where that cold spot was. We've had some really good results with that, actually. We were using it at Holton Castle, and we were calling out, asking questions. There are men and women there. And all of a sudden, and someone started asking if there are any children there, cold spot. And someone also had another device that also noticed a drop in temperature. Then everything went quiet, and then they started asking about children again. Another cold spot. This is strange, but brilliant at the same time, because we'd never have known that there was this sudden drop in temperature in that room unless we had these devices. So that's something I'm very excited about. I'm very frustrated I can't get the parts quicker.
It's a challenge for like microchips and all that kind of stuff at the moment. Anyway, but
there's been a big national holiday in China as well, I think. So everything's slowed down.
Yeah. I shipped. Yeah, they were all off last week.
That's it.
I deal with China a lot. Yeah,
the old gears are always turning in my head with other ideas, and so I've always got more coming, more in the pipeline. So watch this space.
What kind of things have you got coming up then? What are your thoughts on stuff?
I was showing Brett actually on Friday. I took with me. I've made portable temperature, humidity, magnometer, and pressure sensors, and they all feed back to my phone. So should there have been any sudden change in environmental conditions whilst we were at the hotel, I'd have got an alert on my phone and we'd have seen it. Frustratingly, there wasn't. But if there had been, I'd have known about it.
Wow. Sounds like you're a bit of a tech wizard.
I just have these ideas, and I just have to, I get these ideas for myself, and I think, could I do that? Yeah, I could use that board, I could use that sensor, connect that up, and before I know it, I've done it. So yeah, I'm always thinking of the next product. I probably enjoy more dreaming up the new stuff rather than making all the old stuff. Just fascinates me. It's just my thing.
No, I've been looking at your Etsy shop, and there's some really cool stuff on there. The Witch's Boot House REM pod. Yeah, that's quite a cool looking thing, especially as we approach Halloween.
Yes, well, I've just had a really busy weekend actually. Just boomed because, of course, spooky season's coming just at the time when you can't get any parts.
Yeah.
So stock is
Yeah.
dwindling, unfortunately,
So
which is a good thing.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So can people buy? Is it just through Etsy that people can buy it, or?
Yeah, it's through the Etsy primarily. Anyone can message me. I always say to people who've bought before, and or if someone knows me, just message me. Just we'll sort something out. So Etsy is primarily the store. The store's called Phantom Physics GB. Yeah, check it out, and if you're interested, let me know.
We'll put a link on the show notes and everything like that.
I just wanted to ask, because you mentioned that device you're showing Brett that goes to your phone. What about phone apps? What's your kind of take on things like Necrophonic and these things that people tend to show, or the XLS, things like that? What's your take on
I
all of that?
mean, mobile phones have the sensors in them to work like another ITC device. However, in the past, when I've been volunteering for companies and I've seen these apps come out with some fantastic things and quite a lot of words, and you start thinking it's a little too fantastic. There might be something in them, there might be, but for me, I'd rather stick to the the ITC devices on the market rather than the apps. I think it's very easy when you're doing an app to just I'm not saying they do, but make sure it pumps out words whether anything's happening or not. You want something to have caused that word. You want a change in the atmosphere, change in the magnetic field around it. You don't just want random words pumping out. So yeah, I'm skeptical. However, I believe that there could be something to them, but I'd rather use something else.
I fucking hate those apps. I won't lie. And then, especially when you go on social media and people go, right, what's the best app I can get to communicate? And it's just like, what? And then that's why I get banned from all the groups all the time, because I just say how it is.
Tell them.
But then you
Tell them.
you get loads of people on there going, try this app, it's amazing. And then somebody will go on there, like somebody who's actually thinking about it properly, and go, I like a friend of a friend is the guy who built the app, and he said it's purely for entertainment purposes only, which I know they all say that. But like you mentioned, it's only as good as the words that are putting into it. So if it only ever puts in all the words that are in Bram Stoker's Dracula or something like that, or some other Christmas carol, so it's got ghosts and all that kind of stuff, it's only ever going to pick those words. So it's weird but funny we should say that we use, what was the device we used at the hotel, Ash, that it was pumping out the word, I can't remember what it's called, the
Is that
Alice
your,
box. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the market leader, that one, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, so we picked it up and we said we wanted to try it, and Danny was just like, yeah. But so we were getting random words, and then we went in with a Greystone, and the words changed. They went darker. They were multiple words rather than just single random words being generated. It was weird, wasn't it? And did it say something about killing someone?
Yeah, it was.
God.
It was started doing full sentences.
Yeah,
It was all
it's weird.
dark words like murder, death. Whereas in the audio, we've been using it for like a couple of hours in the other rooms, and it's just nothing. It's just nonsensical. It's just random words. Didn't make any connection to each other. Went into room 8 with Grace Doll, and it was sentences. It was all kind of related to each other. It was all about I can't remember now, but it was like death and names and
It was
all
something like
sorts.
That's
I
interesting.
murdered her or something like that. Like the full sentence. It was weird as hell. It was
Then when we
weird as
came
hell.
out of room 8, he went back just to spitting out like dog, Jupiter, like just random words that don't
Yeah.
make any sort of thing. But yeah, like I say, it's when
I
I
think
guess like
they
when,
need
with
to.
its program like apps, it's hard. I think it's got that human element to it, so it's you have to consider that.
I'd always be looking for something else to back it up, because there's always the chance that just something's happening. Some environmental change that's made a word come out. So I'd always be looking for, like you say, if you're around the Greystone and words like murder start coming out, there might be something to it. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
It definitely
I've taken,
changed. It
yeah,
definitely changed. The tone of those words coming out was completely different. Completely
yeah.
different. And the person who was with us as well, she was like, "Yeah, this is different." So, do you have any like tips for people using these kind of devices? Because
I
we had a.
think that,
Go on, sorry.
I'm going to say the big thing is as well, like you imagine you're looking for changes in the atmosphere, changes in the electromagnetic field, and people will be walking around with them. And I'd say keep it still, put it down, put it next to your grey star, whatever. And then if you see something pop up, there's been a legitimate change. Whereas if you're shaking it around, you're taking it near electrical devices, it could pick something up. So yeah, I'd always say keep it still, keep it in the same place, and then if anything pops up, there's been a change there.
We had a conversation. So we used the Alice box um, in one of the rooms, as room 2, I think, and it was just spitting out random words, and we were changing the conversation based on the words that were coming out,
Yeah, yeah,
and we
I
were
feel
like,
you.
"Oh, actually, we probably shouldn't do that because it is almost leading you down a different path." And we were discussing it that if you're having a line of questioning and it says like Texas or something like that, and you go, "Oh, you're from Texas," which if you're in Chester, probably not. But people will then, I've seen it on programs myself where people will start using the answers or the results that come up on the Alice box or whatever device as their means of conversation rather than, which could be random as anything, instead of just keeping that line of questioning and it almost ignoring anything that's sort of completely wrong or doesn't fit what you're talking about. So if I'm trying to talk about are you in the room and it says Texas or whatever, which clearly is a spurious result and it isn't anything to do with that. Instead of sort of going down that, oh, you're from Texas or whatever, that you should still keep drilling the same
You're right,
question
because
line.
if you ask them where are you from and it came up with Texas, then you're more inclined to believe, right, we're getting a conversation going here. Whereas if you've asked something completely different, you get Texas coming up, you're thinking it's nothing. But it's a way of getting a conversation going, isn't it? Sometimes you know what it's like with the paranormal. You can get nothing. It can be so flat and it's so frustrating. So it can be a way of getting a conversation going sometimes.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Yeah, you're right. I would take it with a pinch of salt and look for genuine answers rather than making it fit. You're right.
Yeah, that's the thing. Some people make. 'Cause it's funny because you go on these groups and oh my god, it's a passionate hate of mine. If I say, and just on the other flip side of that with UFOs, Ash is the same. Somebody will put a picture up and go, "This is a TR3B." I just have to scroll down and wait for Ash's response to this, which happened yesterday. And I was like, I wondered when I'd see you on here, Ash. But it's just like people jump to these conclusions on the groups, on all these different things, and going, "Oh my god, and then everybody backs them up, and they're like, well, if you don't like it, scroll through." And I'm like, well, I want to try
It's
and
about progressing the field, isn't it, as well? I
yeah,
mean, with paranormal ghost photos, you get so many pictures of dust particles and people saying they're orbs, don't you? I can imagine, Ash probably gets hundreds of photos sent to him, possibly of something like Venus, because it's in the sky, it's bright, it's a UFO. And you've always got to look for a more reasonable explanation. And if you can't come up with it, then yes, maybe it's something, but it could be just something soft, can't it? I think. Did you see something like, was it the moon or something in Delamere or something like
oh
the
god,
light?
yeah.
Yeah,
I was looking.
yeah.
It was a weird night anyway, and the episode's not out yet, which is frustrating. But there there was a lot more happened than we've spoken about on the podcast. But yeah, there was one point, and I looked over and I saw this light in the, the woods. I was like, I'm sure that's the moon. I'm sure it's the moon. It was bright. It was bright. It was the most amazingly clear night that night, and then the moon was behind. And I looked at Danny. I was like, "Is that the moon?" And he's looking over. I was like, I'm sure it's the moon, which it was.
Yeah.
But
Well, you did the right thing. You went and debunked it. You made sure of what it was, whereas some people might have jumped up saying, "Yes, we've made contact."
yeah,
You can't do that.
yeah.
You've got to check it, haven't you? It can't just.
I only had to wait a few more minutes, and the moon was rising at that point, so it would have become more apparent a few minutes later. But it was just where it was and what we were doing at the time was just like. Have you ever been
Do
to
you get a lot of?
Delamere?
Oh, we get to Delamere all the time. It's just down the road from us because we're in Chester. It's one of our family favourite spots to go for a walk. It's great in the summer and the winter. A lovely
Yeah.
place. So now I know there might be more to it. I'll be there even more.
You wait till you see the episode. If there's this particular bit that happened when we were sat down, I'm pretty sure that'll be on there because that was an interesting moment or interesting minutes, quite a few minutes. So Ash had seen some stuff as well behind me, and there was all sorts that happened in one particular bit, which I'll tell you off air. If you share your bit, I'll share our bit. And it was just a crazy place. And what I was going to ask was, what's the most compelling piece of evidence that you've seen? Not necessarily that you've experienced, but that you've seen. Because there's always that moment, like with Bigfoot, there's that one piece of footage where there's like Bigfoot or Sasquatch walking across the dry lake that everybody's seen, and can't really be debunked. We spoke to a guy who's got the footprint of it, which was quite insane. And he showed us it on camera, didn't he, Ash? Do you remember? He's like, I'll go and get it. He brought out this bloody plaster of Paris sort of footprint that had been taken from the scene. Yeah. So what have you seen, either online, TV, or whatever, that you think, actually, that is amazing?
There was something not so long ago, probably this time last year, from the Haunted Hunts, where they investigated Pendle Hill and they went to Lower Wellhead Farm. They were given special permission because I believe people still lived there. And I mean, they were catching things all night. They had voices coming through. They saw shadows moving themselves. They had a locked off camera in one room watching the corridor. There's a full
I know which bit you're going to say.
past the door. It's incredible. You've got to fully believe that they're telling the truth, haven't you? Because I wasn't there to see this, but my God, it's compelling. It really is. It's one of them I've screenshotted and saved it. I'll look at it now and again and think, that's incredible.
I think that's one of the best bits I've seen. Yeah. It's an impressive piece of footage for definite. And like you say, knowing Danny like we do, and I can't. He doesn't strike me as the kind of person.
He will try and debunk everything, won't he? So I'm inclined to believe him. Yeah. It's very, very good footage. I'd recommend anyone watch that. Best one I've seen.
That is a great episode of the Haunted Hunts, isn't it? What about you, Ash? What's the best bit of footage you've ever seen?
I like that. When as soon as you said Haunted Hunts, I thought it's going to be that shadow figure, the shadow walking across. But it's very similar to that. I'm talking about the hotel again. The where it looks like the figure walking across the corridor into the wall. And it sort of goes. And then when they've done the sort of research into the building, like it used to be open plan, and that wall never used to be there. So it's like that was an old figure that's still walking. That wall might not have been there when it was walking. So that's why it appears to walk through the room. And again, that was locked off. There's no one up there. There's nothing happening that could have caused that clear shadow to walk right across that corridor. I think just because, like I say, I'll talk about the hotel again, but like the amount of stuff they do have is just unbelievable. And it's because they have all the cameras there. They're recording 24/7, so they are going to get more stuff. Apart from that, my own experiences, but that's not evidence. That's only evidence to me. Then again, the footage we caught in my basement, the rock hitting the wall.
I've heard about your basement.
Something throwing a rock at us, and there's nowhere it could have come from.
Yeah.
And we did capture the noise on camera, not the actual.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
thing. But, I guess for me, personal experience. Because, like, say with footage, you're not there, so you can't 100% know that. No matter how much you trust, like we worked with Danny, we know how he works. Don't think that he'd fake any of that stuff, but unless you're there, you have no idea. So anything online, anything TV stuff, any sort of clips, it's always going to be a bit of question to it. Whereas with personal experiences, I know that happened, so I know I can trust my own senses, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing better than actually being there at the time. I was at Chirk Mill recently. I was on my own in the building, and I just started a little investigation with an H4 mic. Are you familiar with the H4 microphones? They pick up everything. They're so sensitive, brilliant. I just literally turned it on. I was coming down the stairs, and I heard a woman's voice singing, "I'm ready." So I thought maybe the owner had come back in, Tracy. So I went to find her. Nope, there was no one in the building. I was on my own. So where did this voice come from? So things like that, you know yourself that there couldn't have been anyone else there that has done this. It's nothing better than that, is there?
Definitely.
Greg,
so
what's yours?
Okay.
I get away without you answering.
So I don't really want to talk about the hotel, but the bit that went past the window, there was like a white object that went past the window, swept past the window. We were lucky enough that we were doing a Facebook Live at the time, and we were discussing that bit of footage because we'd like screen grabbed it or whatever. And then one of the guys listening, who got his own podcast and his own YouTube channel and whatnot, Ben Woolgate, he had took the footage. He done all loads of weird stuff while we were on the live and sent it to us so we could put it up on the screen at the same time. It was just mad. And once we've been to it and been in the room, we were in there and we got a tap on that particular glass as well when we were talking. We've just about got it sort of on audio, but yeah, that was a great bit of evidence. The other bit was we were in the brothel there, the one at the hotel, not any other brothel.
Just a night out.
Glad you cleared that up.
Last time Greg came up, we just
yeah, it's wild when we get together. And it doesn't come across. Well, I didn't get any of what happened as it happened. I was sat at far end of the table in the brothel, at the head of the table, where I belong, and in the throne. And Ash was one at the far end. The person we were with was sort of to the left, so there's three of us around the table. And then all of a sudden, those two were like, "Did you just move a table or whatever?" And I'm like, "I don't know what you're on about." No, I hadn't even felt the table moving. That's a big table in the brothel. It's huge.
It's huge. Yeah.
And we got it on video, and they used it on the episode on VHX, and it's like something hits the table from underneath and knocks Ash's camera, and
you hear the thump.
You hear the thump, and when I listen to it back, the clip back, it comes from sort of the side of the table opposite from where Ash was, by the side of the camera, and whacks it up, and the camera physically moves. And I was at the far end. I didn't even feel the table move as such. I didn't even know what was going on at that point. But yeah, that was a good bit. That, whilst I didn't really experience it, I was there when it happened, so I know that there was only three of us, and that table's too big for even Ash to move because he was trying to move it afterwards.
I had to really lean on it and really put all my weight on the table to even shift it a little bit. Whereas I was just sat there and the table just shut into me. It was weird. It was weird.
And then in room 5, we had some knocking on the door. That was another thing that happened. Ash heard baby noise. We didn't hear that. Well, I didn't hear that baby noise. But the knocking on the door was mental. And then we were straight on to Danny, because that's the other good thing about that place, is you can get verification or validation straight away. and he showed us the video footage, like on the break, or whatever. It's like, no, there's nothing outside at the same time that the knocks happened, and it was that. I mean, the experience that we had was very good, but there's loads of amazing bits of footage out there that I think people, if they go to YouTube and you put in like paranormal videos, there's loads of crap on there, and there's loads of bits that have been faked and people setting up stuff, but there is some stuff out there, and there's some weird shit happens out there that's on the internet. And if people look at it, there's one, and I can't for the life of me remember what it was called, but this guy had a locked off camera facing a mirror, so it was facing itself, and the camera moves, and there's nothing there.
There's nobody around there. Yeah.
No, and he filmed it, so it was filming its own reflection, so you could see everything behind it. Weird. Brilliant. Like proper weird. I do get though that some of them, like you say, there's a lot of clever people out there on the internet, especially with video editing skills and stuff like that nowadays, that even kids now know how to video edit and can do all the fancy stuff, and you can get free apps that will manipulate footage for you and all sorts. So it's very difficult to know whether or not footage you're seeing is real, whether it's been manipulated, whether it's straight up faked.
If it has millions of views, then it's probably fake.
Yes. Yeah, it is. And there's good stuff out there that just doesn't get seen properly because people always go to the big sort of like YouTube channels and don't bother looking elsewhere for evidence.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. It's you go back to like your Most Haunted, and regardless whether a place was acted or not, there was always something going on, wasn't there? There was always bangs. A cameraman always got, touched or something like that. There was always evidence, and for a half an hour episode, that's a lot of action. Mm-hmm. But whereas the hotel and Danny will happily put out an episode where unfortunately nothing happened, but that's the nature of the paranormal. So that's why I'm more inclined to believe those, although they might not get the hits that others do on YouTube, which is unfortunate because they're probably more honest.
Yeah,
I'm more inclined to believe them and watch those things rather than sensational ones where bangs and things are getting thrown around all the time,
Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah, it's okay then. So you talk about Most Haunted. What is your favourite go-to sort of program? I know what mine is, but
right, okay.
So mine's Hellier. Hellier is a good one. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but if you watch Hellier, that is mad.
I've not watched it yet. Yeah,
that is mad. That's my favourite out of all of them.
Okay. Yeah, well, I've mentioned the Haunted Hunts. That's been one of my favourites for a while now. I've watched the Haunted Hotel every week as well. There's a local team as well, that have a YouTube channel called Haunted Scouts. They're quite good. I like the way they do things as well, because you can tell by the way they do it that I'm inclined to believe them. But one of my favourites,
them as well. Like,
are they?
Yeah, they are.
No nonsense and just have a laugh and stuff as well.
They are. They keep teasing about doing a proper, similar to you guys, like a haunted pub crawl with all the pubs in Liverpool. They've even made a T-shirt with all the pubs they do on it. I'd love to do that with them. We'd definitely be seeing spirits by the end of the night, that's for sure. So I like that, and I did enjoy on Discovery. There was a show called Paranormal. What explain caught on camera or Paranormal caught on camera? One of the two. One's American, one's British, and the British one was brilliant because they just had normal people catching extraordinary things on their hunts, and I loved that because they've obviously sifted through all the crap that might be out there and just found things that can't be explained, and I loved that. That was a very good one.
About you, Ash?
Well, Greg stole mine.
Sorry.
Hellier was always my answer, and Greg and I haven't watched it. I watched it, now he steals my...
I haven't watched it all yet, but I'm ploughing through it. You can watch it on YouTube for free, just to let you know. It's on YouTube, but it's so good. It's so good. They do Estes method and that, and it's not what you think it's going to be, which is good. Cool. So I've had a great chat tonight, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks
me
for
too.
Coming on. So where can people find you?
So if you check out on Facebook, it's Phantom Physics GB. Or on our Etsy store as well, Phantom Physics GB. Check us out and drop me a message if you want to have a chat about any of the kit. If you want to know anything before you buy, just let me know.
Awesome.
Nice one. Cheers, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Good to speak to you.
And you.
Pursuit of the Paranormal with Ash and Greg.